Hi, and welcome back to Healing Gems. Right, so today's session is symptoms of chronic fatigue. So, the symptoms of chronic fatigue are wide varying and they differ from person to person. Some people may have a lot of different symptoms, some people may experience one or two main symptoms. So, it all just depends on you, your body makeup, and how severe the chronic fatigue is for you as well. So there's quite a few common symptoms that people experience, and which are run through. And people usually find that symptoms alter over time. So the symptoms they had at the beginning of the illness not necessarily are the same ones that they have as they start to recover and go towards the end of the illness. So, it's almost like the illness is a bit like an onion, that it comes off in layers. So you peel back one layer and then you peel back another, and that brings up something else, or something else goes away and then something replaces it. So the symptoms can vary as you go through the different stages of the illness. So the main ones that people associate chronic fatigue with is obviously physical and mental fatigue. Physical fatigue, pretty obvious, you will find everyday activities exhausting, let alone going to the gym or running, which is out of the question for most people with chronic fatigue. Just doing day-to-day activities can be absolutely exhausting. Just hoovering the house might feel like you've climbed Everest and back. So that's pretty much the main one that most people with chronic fatigue will experience. Then there's the mental fatigue. So, tiredness within your mind, not being able to think straight or think clearly. It might be that you get tired very quickly just reading or even watching television, because it's stimulating your senses with light and sound. So that all takes energy to process, and that can create mental fatigue as well. Brain fog. This is, maybe like a real heaviness in the head, a cloudy kind of feeling, not being able to focus and concentrate properly. A lot of people will experience dizziness, and maybe a feeling of like dropping. People might get sort of like a ringing in the ears, like tinnitus. It doesn't last all the time, but maybe it comes and goes. Blurry vision, a numbness in different parts of the body. So it might be your arm or your leg feels numb. You might get pins and needles. You might get sort of like an itchy kind of crawly feeling underneath the skin, either in certain parts of the body, all over the body. Sore joints, swollen joints, especially for people who have ME, because there is a school of thought that chronic fatigue and ME, they are similar. An ME person would have all of the symptoms that a chronic fatigue sufferer would have, but the extra bit they have is like a lot of inflammation around the joints as well. Anxiety is pretty much very, very common, and probably one of the highest symptoms that most people with chronic fatigue have. If you didn't have anxiety before you develop chronic fatigue, then it's almost very certain that you will have anxiety when you have chronic fatigue. And this is just because your nervous system is ramped up so high, and the symptoms that you get are so weird, varied, disturbing, scary, that of course it's going to provoke a lot of anxiety within your body, especially at the early stages where you don't know what's going on. If you haven't been given the diagnosis of chronic fatigue and you're unsure, what the symptoms mean, how long they're going to last, if it's ever going to go away. Obviously, all of those questions provoke anxiety within the body, and your nervous system is already highly ramped up. So adding on top of that the worry of chronic fatigue, or the possibility of having it, and everything you read about it is negative, and the fact that a lot of people say that once you've got it, it's never going to go away, of course that's going to provoke a lot of anxiety. So what I would suggest there is stay away from any blogs or any articles on chronic fatigue which tell you cannot heal, because that is not going to help you on your healing journey. If you know other people that suffer from chronic conditions and they aren't doing anything to help themselves, then to be honest, I would just stay away, do what you need to do in order to heal. Don't be around negative people. and stay away from, you know, anyone that tells you that you can't heal from this, because you can, and many other people have. Okay, so other symptoms are muscle aches, weakness, like it could feel like jelly legs, you know, you feel like your legs don't support you, or it could be muscle stiffness. A lot of people get it across the sort of shoulders and neck anyway, because that's a real place that us humans do tend to hold a lot of tension. It might be really tight muscles and stiffness for you if you have chronic fatigue. As I said, intolerance to heat, light, cold, loud noises, all of that, because, you know, as I said, your nervous system's ramped up so much it can't tolerate any of these things anymore. It will be maybe not being able to control your internal heating system, so you're either going to be too cold or you're going to be too hot, and you can't regulate your own body temperature. Chest pains, this could be things like a real heaviness on the chest, it could be heart palpitations, and again, you know, that is sort of linked to anxiety as well. That's a real common anxiety symptom. Just a general feeling of feeling unwell, you know, just feeling sick, feeling, you know, sort of flu kind of like symptoms. That's very common with chronic fatigue. Fevers and headaches, which could be in the form of like a tension headache, or it could be a migraine, or just pounding headache. Again, sensitivity to light and causing your head to hurt, all of these things. So with chronic fatigue, generally the way that they will diagnose it is if you have eliminated every other possible, any other possible condition that has very similar symptoms. So it's likely if you go to the doctors, they're going to run blood tests, they might do scans on you to try and rule out everything else. So generally chronic fatigue is like a process of elimination, and then once they've eliminated everything else, and you've had the condition for 6 months or more, that is generally when a doctor or a rheumatologist, generally it's that person, will diagnose you with chronic fatigue. So they're the symptoms, and as I said, you know, they can be very severe at the beginning of the condition, and then they can change as the condition goes along and improves. But, you know, you will find that what you had at the beginning won't be what it's like towards the end, and as you do more and more healing work, then symptoms do tend to fade off. So they could be very severe at the beginning, but towards the end, you might still have headaches, or you still might feel like tired, but it's definitely not going to be the intensity of what you had at the very beginning. Okay, so they're the symptoms. If you haven't yet got the diagnosis of chronic fatigue and you suspect that you do have it, then obviously go to your doctor, ask them to run lots of tests. Generally, people with chronic fatigue, when they have all the tests done, all the blood tests, some people will go and have MRI scans, that kind of thing, they come back saying you are in perfect health. That's generally what happens with someone who has chronic fatigue. You know, all your blood works are fine. Generally, to a doctor, on paper, you look like a fit and healthy person. But obviously, as we know, that isn't the case. When you have chronic fatigue, you feel awful, and that is every day, minute to minute. So go and get yourself checked out if you haven't already, and then start watching some of my other videos on how to heal chronic fatigue, because the quicker you can start implementing things into your life to heal chronic fatigue, the quicker you will get better. Because the more the condition goes on before you start treating it, your body and brain start to learn and adapt to the symptoms, expect the symptoms, and the harder it is to heal from it. So the quicker you can put these things in place, the quicker you are going to get better. Okay, good luck.